hang on, that's the wrong one. There we go. So this video is going to be a couple things. Primarily it's about a game called Moment to Midnight, and initially it was only going to be about the game in YouTube short form, but I realized I have way too many thoughts about the soundtrack that I was leaving out. So it's also going to be about that as well, and on top of that, some of the other work the composer Aaron Cherof has been behind, because his composing style fascinates me, and I need to unpack it, and this is way cheaper than therapy. To start with the first one, I think it'd be alright to just play you what I wrote back in February when I was trying to keep this thing under 3 minutes, and go from there. Moment to Midnight. If you like One Shot, this game is very much on the same wavelength as that. Look, it's even got the purple motif on the album cover. I discovered this game through the soundtrack autoplaying on Spotify one day, and immediately being magnetized to it. Hell, if you don't count songs that set as my alarms, Reunion was my #1 song last year. Also, apparently the developer went on to join the team for Deltarune? Good job, Taxi. Moment to Midnight takes place in a little purple town stuck exactly 1 second before midnight and surrounded by a halted space where time never moves. It's not shown exactly what the deal is, but I'm thinking somewhere between Pokemon Explorers of Sky's Time Gear Paralysis and In Stars and Time's King's Curse. The game is centered around a gimmick that I think is really cool. Okay, it's actually probably very limiting, but the game knows that and doesn't try to stretch it for more than it can handle. I would explain it, but I think it's better if I just show you. Watch. I think being able to proceed would be best for now. Hey idiot, can't you see where you're going?
Finally awake.
Yeah, it's that. Your character, Liz, starts the game being able to do absolutely nothing. The way they can get the ability to do anything, like hear, walk, or see, is when someone else tells them they can. This would definitely get aggravating over a full game's length, but fortunately for the gimmick, the runtime of Moment to Midnight clocks in at all of 20 minutes. Not exactly a barn burner, this one. This is actually part of the reason I find this game kind of fascinating. Sure, it's cute, and the music is just amazing. Shout out to this guy for teaching me that emotional soundscapes don't require complicated lines. Just a fuck ton of reverb. But if that were it, I wouldn't be talking about it. Really, it's just that the primary emotion this game pulled for me was needing to know what caused this situation. I mean, this world is begging for a bigger story. Hell, it has a bigger story, but we've basically entered at the very end of it as the end product of a much bigger plan, and the game just doesn't have the scope to explore that plan. As you progress up the tower, you're told that your journey has been much longer than you've experienced, and that you, or List I guess, used to be part of an order of seemingly godlike beings, but had to be stripped of everything they had to save this town's second time. That, and the premise of a town stuck in a knot of time, makes me long for more context so badly. I suspect that the ending— by the way, check out this character design. Squirrel, context, dragon. It's supposed to be very cathartic for the characters involved, but as of now, the game's just too short for me to get emotionally invested, and so I don't get a lot out of the abrupt ending besides— wait, that's it? Like, this green dude is named Kata. Get it? Kata? List? Those names make me think there's an interesting history between those two before List sacrificed their entire identity, but we don't get to see it because we're playing as the amnesiac with a single mission. I think I'm making this because there's too much potential here to let go to waste. If even one person could write a fanfiction from Kata's perspective on just what happens in the game, I'd be overjoyed. Hell, if you aren't careful, I'll do it. Anyways, if this game piques your interest, I've made sure to leave the most puzzly element of the game unspoiled, and you can get it for free with the link in the description. You can pay if you want, but it's not required. Wow, that sums up my thoughts on the game really well, actually. Beautiful atmosphere and identity, intriguing setting, puzzles that aren't really puzzles and you just walk through a door, and an overwhelming longing for more. The main things I missed are this prophecy claiming that a great beast will bring the flow of time back, which, surprise, surprise, that's you, and some cute character interactions, which I think I'll leave as a treat for people that actually play this thing. I wasn't kidding about the fanfic thing, by the way. Y'all better get on that, because based on the fact that this took months to write, I'm not very good at this. I will make these two gay. They probably already are, actually. I wish I had more to say about the game itself, but again, it is only 20 minutes long, so if you don't give two shits about music theory and or composition or production, your enjoyment of this video probably ends here. Feel free to click off, feel free to click off, feel free to click off, oh my fucking god. Feel free to click off, and thanks for stopping by. Everyone else, it's time to be completely insufferable. Though I will still try to present everything in a way that's understandable if you're not deranged. So, this soundtrack was composed by Aaron Cherof, spelled like this, pronounced like this, which I only bring up because I fucked it up repeatedly until I went and looked at his website. Aaron Cherof. I probably shouldn't be saying this. I asked him to add his own thoughts on this soundtrack and he was really kind about it, and he's probably going to see this video now. What's up, AC? So if you've heard of him, it's probably thanks to his work on the Minecraft soundtrack, where he made 4 tracks on Tricky Trials, and the entirety of Trails and Tales. That is a lot of teas, goodness. My favorite of those is Featherfall, and that has a lot of hallmarks that appear in the Moment to Midnight soundtrack as well. In particular, 2 that I want to highlight. First, fourths are awesome, and putting them as the crux of 2 parallel piano lines makes hella atmosphere. Here's another example in a track called The Thought Part 1. Cherof loves these, and you bet your ass are gonna show up in this OST. I also love these, so much that I stole the idea and put it in my own song. And that's enough of that, goodbye forever. And second, music theory is total bullshit. Okay, wait, let me walk that back a bit. Music theory is a very helpful tool for understanding what you hear, figuring out how what's happening works, learning the basics of what definitely sounds good, and possibly putting the ideas into your own work. I myself gained a new appreciation for what was happening in a couple of tracks just by analyzing their chords and seeing how they relate to each other. What music theory is not is a rule set that you have to jam things into. Sometimes, especially in ambient music, composers don't follow functional harmony at all, and as a result, trying to analyze what's going on through the Roman numerals I usually use ends up being way more complicated than what you actually hear. Case in point, let's listen to the very first song in this OST, the title track. Wow, one chord in and I already have a full paragraph of thoughts, that's impressive. I know that not all of my audience is super music brain, but I am pretty sure most of y'all aren't artists because I know what you are. So to explain what's going on here, I'm going to compare notes to color theory. I came with this comparison a few years ago and I'm still pretty proud of it, so here we go. Here's a color wheel and it's already split into 12 sections. Wait, what? Have people already thought of this comparison? Hold on. Oh god, don't make me watch this whole thing. Let's take this yellow and put it with this yellow-orange. Wow, that looks like shit. What a surprise. How about with this opposing purple? Might be even worse. But if you shift that purple a step to the left or right, suddenly it looks a whole lot better. Oops, surprise, these are all notes actually. And the two most dissonant intervals that exist in normal tuning, the minor second and the tritone, happen to line up with the least congruent color combos. This chord happens to have a tritone with the root. Except, does this sound dissonant to you? Because it doesn't to me. And that color flash should give you an idea as to why. Tritone by itself is pretty ugly sounding, but if you bury it in a bunch of other intervals, it's not nearly as weird. In fact, in my opinion, adding that bit of dissonance makes the chord way prettier. Cause like, purely consonants are pleasant, but they're also boring. Compare that to this chord again, and you can hear how much more flavor is packed into the latter. Just like colors. You usually don't want to build an art piece around opposite colors, but sprinkling them in can really add some flavor to the composition, and using similar colors is like the entire concept of shading. God, I could go on for ages about this parallel. Like an augmented chord is just the primary colors, which just look like a stock palette, but dropping the sharp 5 to a normal 5 makes it come to life. Or ooh, here's a bunch of 7th chords as colors. Oh my god, we don't have time for this. We are 1 chord into the soundtrack. Hopefully that's the longest tangent I go on this video. Foreshadowing is a narrative device in which suggests— Anyways, Cherof loves these buried tritones, and it strengthens the game's comparisons to One Shot because that game also does this all the time. This is another thing I asked Cherof about, and apparently it was a total coincidence and he hadn't even heard of One Shot. But, in part because of this soundtrack, he got asked to be on the OST for Future Cat's next game. Wait, what? Oh my god. Now, you may be wondering how all of these chords in the intro lead to each other. My answer is, you fucking tell me. Remember approximately 30 years ago when I said ambient music tends to not follow functional harmony at all? Yeah, this is what I mean. See, you don't need a grounded in rules reason to put harmonies together. These chords go together because they sound good, and we don't need a better reason than that to do it. Hell, we don't even really have a key until this last chord points us towards one and the piano lines afterwards cement it. Some call that lazy analysis. I call it thinking outside the box, and also being lazy. Look, there's been 2,000 words in this script already, and I haven't even started ranking the OST, which we are going to do. Don't worry, it's only 6 songs, it shouldn't take long. And we will come back to the rest of this one once its spot pops up. The reason I'm okay with leaving just the intro picked apart for now is because, well, number 6 is a retread of the title track, but with only the intro and a little more bass. Well, that was easy. Consider the entire last 3 minutes of track's entry and let's move on. Ah yes, the longest sound in this— yeah, the longest sound in this song track. The longest song in this soundtrack, upstaged by its little brother 1 track before it. This is, in my opinion, the closest this soundtrack comes to crossing over the line of atmospheric to just dull. It doesn't, I still like this track, but pretty much every other one has more things to talk about that are interesting. Hell, I rambled about a single chord for 3 minutes and I'm still struggling to come up with much to say about this one. It shares an identical chord progression and structure with another song I like more, The Stillness and Night, and its sonic palette is less interesting than the soundscape that one creates. Really, the main thing to note about it is that it's only one of 2 pieces here that uses drums. And it's why it's number 5. Look, the soundtrack thrives on its vibes and atmosphere, along with comically large amounts of reverb. Supplementing that with trebly percussion with no reverb at all on it just undercuts whatever soundscape has been built. Fortunately, that percussion only starts playing once you've solved pretty much every puzzle in the town and you're ready to progress, and the rest of the time is the first half of the OST version, which is a lot nicer. But still, that's a warning to the rest of this OST. If you're gonna include drums, you better have something that justifies them. Something like— Well, that's the end of our free wins. So this soundtrack can be broken down into 3 categories: title track remixes, town remixes, and the Clock Tower song. I mean, this does have the same form progression as these 2 tracks, but the chord progression and vibe are so different that it gets its own category. And guess what I usually like to analyze? I'll give you a hint, it's not form. Clock Tower is easily the most intricate track in this OST. It's 5 minutes long, it's got a guitar to go with the usual synth pad vibraphone combo. Vibraphone? I'm not sure actually, hang on. Okay, according to my local percussion expert, it's actually a Celeste, which is not even the right genre of pixel game, so I call bullshit. Anyways, there's a part in like 14.4 or something, and most notably, this is the other track to have drums on it. Makes me feel kinda bad for having it in the bottom half, to the point where I actually made 2 lists. One with my opinions, where this is number 4, and one where I try to be objective, where it's all the way up at number 2. And to be clear, the jump between number 6 and number 4 is nuts. We're already clocking in at like an 8 out of 10. But like I said earlier, this OST thrives on atmosphere and vibes, and this is a very directed song. But anyways, let's take it apart. Insert 12-tone reference here. Wait, I wasn't supposed to read that part. Okay, so the chord progression in this song is fucking unhinged. In fact, let's take away my best guess at a key in the Roman numerals and just look and listen to these chords. See if you can pick up the tonal center. Now, if you weren't able to land on a key, congratulations, you did it faster than I managed, because I had to go all the way to the B section, which is for sure in B Mixolydian, before deciding this section was too. In this first section, there's only 2 chords that get more than 1 appearance, neither of which are a B chord, and one of which isn't even in the right scale. Even the single B chord we do have bizarrely has a 6 symbol under it. Don't even get me started on the second part, which I had to add a new purple to my chart just to cover this thing. So what makes me so sure in B Mixolydian? Well, first and easiest to explain is why this is marked as a 6 chord. And really it's just a failing on this Roman numeral system itself. A B6 chord is made of the same notes as a G sharp minor 7 chord, so we consider them to be the same thing in this notation. But if you listen to a B6, and then a G sharp minor 7, yeah, those are definitely different vibes. Turns out Megan Trainor was onto something, it really is all about that bass. Why did I fucking write that? As for the rest of this nonsense, thankfully most of its chords are all pulling the same trick. Modal interchange. That showed up a lot in the In Stars and Time soundtrack if you happen to see my video on that, and I forgot to explain what it is because I'm an idiot. It's basically the idea that you can borrow chords from other modes that start on your root scale. Like this D major chord with a sharp 4 is in B Mixolydian, but it is in B Dorian, so using it here still works. That explains these first 4 chords along with this last bit of the A section, and it could explain these 4 chords too, but I think something much simpler is going on. It's just a walk down. Look, B flat, A, G sharp, G, and back up to G sharp to land back in the key. Sometimes it's G sharp minor swapped out for an E, but in that case you can just keep the top of the 5th where it is and you can catch up later. By the way, I haven't even mentioned the worst part about this progression. Remember how I said I got Cherof to get his thoughts on his own work? Well, it's based on the same progression as the title track, but down a whole note, and then I extended the progression to work as an 8-bar phrase that ends with a 4-bar phrase that concludes the section. Are you fucking kidding me? I literally never noticed that. Well, guess I gotta go fix that up. And thank goodness, the B section is just a 2-chord loop because these two sound really nice together. Unfortunately, the reason it's so simple is because, yep, we just swapped out harmonic complexity for rhythmic complexity, because this part's in 14/4. It doesn't really dive deep into weird time signatures though, we basically just use it to keep us on our toes for this section, make sure it doesn't get dull. And that was my number 4 of 6 songs. Holy hell. Hey, it's the title track. For obvious reasons, we're gonna skip the intro and just focus on the main bit. I did write the chords for this, but this is where this type of analysis really starts breaking down, because you can get a lot clearer of an idea of what's going on by just taking a look at the sheet music. Oh my god, what the hell is that? See, it's just one piano part, and upon looking at it, it becomes clear that whatever chord progression ends up happening is just a happy accident. Well, okay, it's not, this is planned out, but they're not the point. The point is these 2 repeating lines working together to create the soundscape, with a slower floating melody on top and occasional bass notes. That approach means that even though this progression might not work on paper, but with this tritone chord change here, with these lines going, all it really needs is a single note in common, which we do have. That also holds true for all 3 versions of this motif. Thank goodness that one was shorter. This is supposed to be a smaller project and it's spinning way out of control already. But now we get to the top 2, and we're in for a treat because these songs are both 10s to me and they could not be more different in terms of approach. To see what I mean, let's take a look at... Oh fuck yes, dude. So most of the time these chord charts give about a quarter of the information on a song, missing out on melody, rhythm, and instrumentation, or timbre. Here, it's giving a full half of the picture. There's no real time signature or even tempo, and there's no melody to speak of. It's just these chords played with a stunningly beautiful bell synth over some warm pads. You may notice that these particular chords are a lot more diatonic than what we've seen so far. Diatonic is just staying in the right key, but still avoid the 1 chord for quite a while. Both of these aspects add to the vibe. The first because it'd be pretty hard to relax into a mood if the harmonies were jumping all over the place, and the second is actually pretty common in ambient music. Leaving the progression stuck in this 6/5 loop does a lot to make it feel distant. Not uncomfortable, but detached. Hell, when we finally reach the 1 chord, we get an F sharp major instead of the expected minor. You've arrived at your destination, but it's not really what you expected to find. I swear, this is an atmosphere I could live in for hours. And I suspect that Cherof is quite proud of it too, because not only is it one of only 3 individual songs of his that got its own video on his YouTube page, it's also in this teaser for the game, meaning it actually has 2 videos for itself. Hell, if you go to his website and check the Moment to Midnight section, it's listed as one of his selections alongside... oh. Well, looks like I'm falling right into the general consensus on this one. Obvious pick is obvious, I guess. This song isn't actually in the game. Cherof released it as a bonus for the game's 1-year anniversary, but my god is it amazing. Listening to this gives me the same feeling as the last 3 minutes of Bury the Light. Not sonically, but it feeling like it has all the soul in the world put into it, and then you find out the composer made it entirely because the project called out to them. It's not as harmonically complex as the Clock Tower, but it has that same sense of scale and grandeur to it, while also feeling intimate and cozy. In fact, it's kind of a perfect fusion of everything we've learned about this OST. Like the title track, it lives off of 2 parallel piano lines that go throughout the piece, and even when they're buried under more instruments and pads, they're always chugging along. Actually, the top line starts looping C sharp and G sharp from about 58 seconds in, and then it kind of fades to the background, providing a cushion for everything else until we reach the 2-minute mark, and suddenly... so good. The piece uses the fact that the line was so static so that when it finally changed, the simple motion felt like the sky opening up. It also pulls the if it's just piano lines you can go most anywhere and have it sound smooth trick right at the end. Like the Stillness of Night, it plays mostly diatonically with just a hint of going somewhere else in the C6 chord from a mode just next door. Like A Town Abandoned by Time, it leans on a Celeste to add texture, and like Clock Tower, it uses a chromatic mediate in the wind down section with this D major sharp 4. And of course, it starts with the same opening as the title track in Purpose, while also ending on a chord that is definitely not the 1 chord and has a tritone in it. Hey look, bookends. I'm gonna be real, I don't think the way I wrote this ending is how it actually works, but I don't know how it actually works, and this does the job, it's good enough. And that's all of them. I end up talking about the soundtrack of this game a lot more than the actual game, but that tends to happen when said game is less than half an hour, and most of my thoughts can be broken down into I wish there was more of it. I really don't know how to end this video, so I guess I'll just throw a couple more recommendations of Cherof's work. I suggest the first 4 tracks of Anagnorisis, Jesus, which include the banger title track, The Thought Part 1, which I mentioned earlier, MM Plus, which is way groovier than it has any right to be, and His Transmission, which evokes a similar feeling as Moment to Midnight of what lord you have that I'm missing, and also like the entirety of Halation, but especially the first track, Psalm, which feels like a lost Toem track, honestly. Also, maybe someday I'll play Cobalt Core, I don't know. Other than that, I guess I could ask mostly to Cherof himself if he has any thoughts or parts of the creative process he'd like to share. Aaron? Moment to Midnight was always one of my favorite projects, and I have a lot of fondness for it. It was my first time collaborating with Daisy Owl, someone who has become one of my closest collaborators, and with whom I subsequently made Sunshine Heavy Industries and Cobalt Core. And with Taxidermy going on to work on Deltarune, and Daisy Owl on Cobalt Core, and with me going on to work on Minecraft, Moment to Midnight ended up having a magical lightning in a bottle quality that somehow defied the scope of being a Game Jam project. I'm glad the soundtrack has a bit of life of its own in the Spotify algorithm, and has led more people like you to discover the game. Given everyone's schedules, I don't know if it'll happen, but I would really love if we could revisit the world of Moment to Midnight and flesh it out more someday. I would absolutely love that. Hey y'all, hope you enjoyed the video. Wow, I did not mean to take this long to upload again. Figures I have my first big completed project where it gets a good amount of people to be interested in what I'm doing for like the first time, and I immediately fuck off for 5 months. Great job, me. I do at least have a reason for it. For those of you that saw my other video, you may remember I promised my next video would be about Outer Wilds, and this is, well, not that. Believe me, I tried my damnedest to make that one, but no matter what I did, I just could not get the script to speak to me. I had too much of a build-up to a point that was too short. That video's not dead, it has some of my funniest bits, and anyone that knows me knows that I would rather evaporate than let a good bit go unspoken, but I ended up putting it on the back burner just so I could get something out, you know? Maybe I'll try to make it work, maybe I'll repurpose it, but I will talk about the funny space game on this channel. Second order of business. I'm still cosplaying everyone's favorite flaming pit of attachment issues with the hat. I love using Siffrin as my character, both because he's got a ton of useful faces and I feel like he fits my vibe, and also I got a couple comments last video saying I sounded like him, which made me very, very happy. But he's also not mine. It's not even like a lookalike OC, it is literally just Siffrin from In Stars in Time, and I feel awkward about using his likeness. I was gonna just color him in with Eggman colors to make him distinct, and I think the 2 I made actually look pretty good, but the problem is making them sucks. It may look as easy as clicking the fill tool, but the lines of this sprite were drawn with a soft brush, which means there's a bunch of gray pixels along the line that I have to fill in manually, lest it look like this. No bueno. I got through doing that in the 2 sprites shown before deciding I'd rather just start editing this thing. Where I'm going with this is if any of y'all are willing to help me make these, and I will pay you for it, hit me up on Discord, at a little, we can talk it out. Thirdly, as always, all the sheet music and chord charts I made, alongside the music used in here and the cover of Lover Girl I made that's in the background right now, will be in the description, along with Aaron Cherof's YouTube. Peep those if you like what you heard for the latter 2 and are a nerd for the former 2. And finally, big ol' shout out to Wessel on YouTube for having a full playthrough of this game up. It came in so much handy. Alright, that's all I got. See ya! Misses out on melody, rhythm, and information. Can I speak words, please? It's just too much information.